cultures rise and fall. They adapt in some ways and change beyond what was recognisable. Such is the case for Destiny's The Fallen. Hi, Rick here on Certifiably Ingame, and in this episode we'll be looking at the culture of the Elixni.
And my name is Mushu, or Ollie if you prefer, and I normally reside on the Future Wolf Cult channel, which is a place that's dedicated to mostly nonsense in Destiny.
Destiny is brimming with sci-fi lore, but it's not always presented in a readily accessible way, so I looked for a bit of outside help here. To begin with, let's take a cursory glance at the narrative.
So the general outline for Destiny has this seemingly benevolent orb arrive in Earth's solar system, bringing with it technologies and instigating humanity's golden age. This is the Traveller, and humanity's advancement is fueled by its abstract power, the light. Of course, soon after its arrival, other alien species arrived, species who covered its power or even have been previous recipients of its light.
Long story short, the Golden Age came to an end when an obscure darkness arrived in pursuit of the Traveller, and now Earth, humanity, and these other races are trapped in turmoil against one another. One race in particular, however, mirrors humanity's encounter with the Traveller.
The Fallen that we see in Destiny are a desperate and dispersed people, nomadic pirates who scavenge, raid, and plunder to survive. But they weren't always this way. To understand their caste system and culture, we have to look back to their own encounter with the Traveller, back when they were experiencing their very own Golden Age.
Light years away on their lost homeworld, the Elixni had a prosperous and mostly peaceful society. This six-limbed species subsists on ether, a substance of which we know little, but is a necessity for their continued survival.
They were a prideful people, and divided their society into great houses, the names of which still persist to this day. The House of Kings ruled. The House of Judgment passed laws and advised the others as they lived spread amongst the other houses. The House of Rain was responsible for prophecies and possibly the spiritual well-being of the people. At the top of each house was the Kell, who surrounded themselves with barons and baronesses. This nobility acted as the ruling body for the Elixni. Examining their culture today marks it as likely that they always placed a great deal of emphasis on achievements and honour, an aspect that would become twisted in time.
Alongside these three, the other houses included the House of Wolves, Winter, Scar, Stone, and Devils. However, the forces that pursued the Traveller, which they called the Great Machine, eventually found it again, and a great chaotic event known as the Whirlwind occurred. Little is known of this event, though it's likely a series of conflicts that led to the decimation of their way of life, culminating in the disappearance of the Great Machine itself.
Eventually they too fled, retreating into space aboard numerous frigates called Ketches. Several houses did not survive into their nomadic life. The houses of Stone, Rain, and Scar fell, while the House of Judgment greatly diminished. With this breakdown in structure, or perhaps because of it, their nomadic lifestyle took on a darker turn. The priority of the Fallen, upon their exodus, was to rediscover the Great Machine and reclaim their former life. But after years of piracy and morally dark deeds born of survival, they changed.
They developed a rigid caste system and resorted to piracy and subterfuge to scavenge resources. They reworked their artificial intelligences into ether processing machines known as Servitors, and the house structures we see today were born. Each house is still led by a Kell, however, alongside them is the Prime Servitor. This is the hub of ether for the Fallen, a giant sphere to which all other servitors are linked. The servitors provide sustenance, fly their ships, provide communications, and support them in the field. This necessity affords them a great deal of respect in Fallen culture, despite their artificial nature. Alongside the Prime Servitor, an Archon is chosen to maintain and act on its behalf.
Looking at their history, it's unsurprising to see that the Servitor's position became one synonymous with religious devotion. Just as the Traveller, their great machine, was an orb that provided the light for their civilization, and was worshipped by many, the Servitors now stood in its place, providing life-sustaining ether and literal guidance.
They lost their god, in effect, and constructed their own pseudo-gods to replace it?
Kind of, yeah. Though I doubt they saw it like that. This probably would have been a gradual process.
It's also apparent that the advancement in their culture is rewarded with access to more technologies from their lost age, and a greater supply of ether from the Servitors. More ether means that they grow to their full height and stature, so the Kell literally towers above his subordinates. So below this ruling trinity, the Kel, the Archon and the Prime Servitor, come the Barons, whose noble houses and lands are replaced by the ketches and skiffs, the ships that now act as the nomads' homes. The next rung down is the position of Captain, a Fallen who is given command of others in the field. Since the Whirlwind, their former technologies are scarce and not readily available. For this reason, more advanced tech such as energy shields and short-range teleports are held back for Fallen of this rank or higher, with occasional exceptions. Then we have the Vandals in all their forms. These are the Fallen who serve to do most of the field work. They are often selected for specialist assignments and outfitted appropriately.
Then there are the Dishonoured, the dregs and wretches, the lowest class of their society. The dregs are the fodder and the menial labour of the Fallen. When we mentioned their society took a dark turn, this is perhaps the darkest. The dregs have all undergone a process called docking. Their lower arms have been amputated and capped off, their ether supply is stunted, and they are treated with disdain by the Fallen above them. The amputation of the lower arms serves as a mark of shame among the Fallen, a visible and physical disability proportional to their level of honour and merit. The motivation for a dreg is nothing more than to escape its status, and as such, they are often driven to reckless abandon to try and achieve, to reclaim their honour, to undo their mutilation and be whole again. This makes for a tenacious opponent that, although physically weak and with poor equipment, has almost nothing left to lose and everything to gain.
I don't think it's ever stated as such specifically in the lore, but it's hard to imagine this system not being abused. I mean, as far as such an abusive system can be abused. You can see it now, captains forcing their minions to be docked for minor infractions in order to create more relentless soldiers. The dregs may resent them for it, but when their lifeblood ether is in the hands of their superiors, what alternative do they actually have?
Alongside docking, the Fallen practice trial by combat. Likely a remnant of their pre-Whirlwind days, steeped in honour, this practice was preserved by House Judgment as a solution to criminal behaviour rather than incarceration. As a ship-bound race, they would lack the resources to carry the dead weight of an unproductive prison populace, after all.
Alongside the prophecies from their lost age, new myths and legends have been forged among the Fallen. Though with all their devotion to technology, servitors for aether, ketches as homes, even these have taken on the tone of the cyberpunk. Tannix, a Fallen mercenary of no house, has accomplished many feats and is said to be undying, fused with technologies ancient and powerful. Now what I find interesting here is that the Fallen place the emphasis less on the feats and prowess, as human legends, but on the acquisition of ancient technologies that made him powerful. This can also be seen in the House of Devil's acquisition of Siva, a nanotechnology from pre-collapse Earth. They wasted no time incorporating the malicious hardware into their biology, seeking to perfect themselves and free themselves from both their reliance on ether and their desire to return to the Great Machine. Whatever outcome they reach for, it's always technology that serves as their stepping stone.
Today, new houses are appearing as old ones fall. The House of Exiles was made up of, well, just that, banished Fallen. And more recently, the House of Dusk has appeared as the seemingly dominant force among the Fallen. When a Kel ship is empty, often a civil war erupts internally, with different nobles all vying for power. This, combined with assaults from humanity's vanguard, may have led the remaining Fallen to band together. This recent development is worth keeping an eye on, however, as the underlying unifying force is still unseen. Their utilization of drones, armor, energy weapons, and spaceflight does suggest that they retained some of their knowledge from before the Whirlwind. Their opportunistic scavenging serves to just about maintain their tech. But despite this, we often see them draped in cloth shawls that mimic their house heraldry. Furs and protective wraps keep the elements out of their armor, and some, most often wretches and vandals, use melee weapons rather than the more precious wire rifles. Interestingly enough, some captains are seen wielding swords as a preference, but the effectiveness of swords in the Destiny universe is a topic for a whole other video. Suffice to say, with active camo, energy shielding and teleportation, bringing a knife to a gunfight may not be as inadequate as it sounds.
All in all, the Fallen are just that. A fallen race. Once noble and proud, they serve as a warning to other species not to allow pride to turn to arrogance, not to let hard choices compromise your morals, and not allow power into the hands of those that would misuse it. I'd like to give thanks to Mushu for partnering up for this index, as Destiny lore is infamously difficult to decipher and absent in-game, and he's been playing, or at least paying attention, for far longer than I have.
And likewise, I'd like to thank Rick for this collaboration. Destiny lore is deliciously rich if you dig deep enough. If you've enjoyed my yammering, I can be found on the Future Wolf Cult YouTube page, although our content is usually somewhat different from this index.
And I've been Rick. Thanks for watching. The next index will be bringing it back round to Star Trek once again, with either the Xindi or the Xindi. Lots of variety there, so cast your vote by liking the comment below, and until then, thanks for watching. I've been Rick, and goodbye.
This is Mushu, signing out.